because we are fighting not for Ukrainian, not just for Ukraine, for our territory, for our freedoms. We are fighting the freedom, global democracy, global justice, global humanity. Why I'm telling this? Why I'm so convinced in that? Because so many countries are involved already.
Selamat pagi, saya Luki Aulia, wartawan Harian Kompas. Pagi ini kita berada di ruang kerja Bapak Duta Besar Ukraina untuk Indonesia, Bapak Vasyl. Selamat pagi Bapak Dubes. Thank you for having us today. As we know that the world is facing many challenges, including changing geopolitics, recession, and slowing economic growth, as well as the energy transition. And after the Soviet Union collapsed in 1991, Indonesia and Ukraine immediately built bilateral relations that have maintained well to this day. How do you see the cooperation between Ukraine and Indonesia so far, and here, how are the two countries facing the challenges of today's world?
So we have to cut the evil roots of what happened. And the roots of it is very obvious. It's Russian aggression in Ukraine. It's not the war in Ukraine. It's not the conflict in Ukraine. It's either Russian war in Ukraine, or Russian aggression in Ukraine, or Russian war against Ukraine, something like this. We have to call the things what they are to be able to deal with this, to be able to resolve the problem. So after the full-scale aggression 1 year ago, we'll, on 24th of February, will be commemorating, I don't know if it's the right word for that, but we'll be marking the 1 year of the full-scale aggression. And this caused the series of crises globally. Food crisis, one of them, energy crisis, logistics crisis, financial and trade crisis, economic crisis, and the worst, well, etc. And the worst is crisis of trust, crisis of diplomacy, crisis of trust. Because how can we trust the diplomacy or the United Nations, while the permanent member of the Security Council, the big nuclear state, invaded the independent sovereign country of Ukraine and is killing civilians and is destroying the infrastructure? How can we trust each other now in this world?
So can you tell us more on the condition of the crisis on the ground right now? And we understand that Ukraine is asking help from the West of weapons, for instance, like planes and everything. Some people thought that was Ukraine is, how do you say, it's not a puppet from the West. How do you see that? How do you have a comment on that?
There's been a lot of rumors and a lot of narratives spread by Russian propaganda, telling that actually Ukraine is a puppet. Actually, we're not fighting with Ukraine, we're fighting with NATO. I understand, because Russia is desperate. They're losing war. They're losing the fight. They're losing the battle. There is no NATO army fighting in Ukraine. No, not a single. Because the things that we have now, like weapons, these are not NATO weapons. These are Ukrainian weapons. The fact that it was produced in NATO countries does not mean anything, because, Russia uses the weapons also produced or modernized by the NATO countries. Like on the tanks, there is equipment from France, from Germany, blah, blah, blah. And all the missiles they used against Ukraine are manufactured with Western technologies. So, are they using NATO weapons? No, we are not using NATO weapons. We're using weapons produced in NATO countries. But not a single soldier or officer of NATO is fighting in Ukraine at the moment as the NATO. Yeah, we have the volunteers, but they don't have any relations with the affair. So, is Ukraine a puppet? Good question, but to answer this, you should come back to 24th of February 2022, a year ago, when Russia attacked and said that we will be in Kiev streets, and we will like seize Kiev in 3 days or in a week, 5 days, whatever. Yeah, and our president and all the government were proposed to leave, to be evacuated somewhere to the Europe. And what they say, what my president said, do we have weapons? We will fight. So is it the behavior of the puppet? Something wrong with that, yeah, with puppeting.
So speaking of the support from international community, including Indonesia, as you remember that our president was there last year, what do Ukraine actually hope for international community to help to ease the tensions and conflict in Ukraine in the region? So actually, what can we do to help you?
We are a small country compared to Russia. We were very badly equipped militarily before the starting of the war compared to Russia. We didn't have nuclear weapons, and we don't have nuclear weapons, missiles, fleet, many aircrafts and helicopters. We are like outnumbered totally. Yeah, so it's not comparable. Yeah. Plus, it is Ukraine that suffers the attacks by missiles and by the artillery on its territory. It's Ukraine that has, I think, dozens already, of cities, towns, and villages just destroyed to the ground. So people cannot live there anymore, and it cannot be recovered or rebuilt. Just destroyed. Yeah. So we do need help. What sort of help? First, the simplest one: moral help, moral support. We need the words of sympathy, just words of sympathy. So we sympathize the people who lost the dear ones. We express condolences to the people who suffered, died during the brutal attack of Russian Federation. We express support to Ukrainians who bravely fight, to civilians who bravely fight against aggressor, etc., and to the army, of course. Moral support, very important. Second, I'm talking about the global things. Second, we do need the military support, of course, because, as I mentioned, we were badly equipped. So we can produce something, but not much. We can rely only on the help from outside.
Do you have any last words or messages for Indonesian people and also the world?
Actually, it's very simple. I have some messages which I feel very painful for me. Please be aware of propaganda. Be aware of lies. I'm sure that, Indonesian society, like any other society, does not accept lies, but it can be misled by the propaganda. Yeah, that's one thing. Try to be clever to understand what's really going on. If you see it, try to project it on your own country. What happens if, or even your own family, what happens if a burglar just breaks into your house, started to kill your family members, started to destroy or set a fire on your flat? What would you feel? What would you do? Would you be concerned about his concerns, the reasons for doing this? No one will be thinking about it. We'll be fighting, we'll be protecting what belongs to us, and then we'll be calling the police or something, and we would expect the help from them. It's normal. Yeah? So the message is very clear. You don't need to be Ukrainians to stand on the right side. You just need to be humans. Humans. If you understand, if you support justice, humanity, I'm not talking about the democracy, but justice and humanity, two things, you will know where to stand. Because there is no such thing I'm historian. I did my PhD many years ago, 20 plus years ago, and I'm telling you this. In the world history, there is no such thing as neutrality, because if you remain neutral, it will mean that you take side this or that. by doing something or by doing nothing. So, my message is, do not take sides of Ukraine or Russia. Take sides of humanity and justice. And then you will know what to do. Immediately, you will be very clear what to do.
Demikian perbincangan kami dengan Bapak Dubes Vasyl. Sampai jumpa di sesi khusus berikutnya.